Taking this video here to walk around and take an inventory of the basement before I finish it. That way if I ever need to come in and do some additional work, I know where some of the lines are, some of the things that I did. So I'm going to walk through, talk through what the different things are that I did, and also maybe talk about a few tips for doing a basement. So the first thing you can see here, I came up with a really rough checklist of some of the things that need to be done. Each of these things that are scratched out I've already done. You can see here, you can see there's quite a bit left to do, but I'm about to get to sheetrock. So once I get to sheetrock, this list will be gone, and so will lots of others. So will all the information that I have that I could see right now. Something you'll notice looking around, you'll see a lot of drawing on the wall. I have a son, and while down here is trying to get him involved, so let him just go nuts and draw all over the sheetrock, which other people ended up following suit, so there's quite a bit of drawings around here. So the first thing you want to do is come up with a set of plans. I did mine in AutoCAD. If anyone needs the CAD drawings, comment below and you can get a copy of those so that you have a place to start. You have to have several different plan sets, one for electrical, one for framing, general room layout, HVAC, etc. Depends on where you are, what they're going to require. There's also, depending on the municipality you're working with, you can sometimes get these kind of cliff notes. There's a lot of different codes out there. Everything you read on this will say look at the code. Some municipalities will come up with kind of a how-to guide. This one had a really good one which walked you through what you need to do in order to get some of the stuff done so that you could get your inspections done. So the first thing I did was framing. This is here in Colorado. The soils tend to move quite a bit, so you have to do what's called a floating floor. What you need to do is basically put in a footer. What I did to put in the footer is I got a ram set and basically nailed these to the floor all the way around. And then you can see I built the frame and it's actually attached to the roof. The nails that are put in down here at the bottom are through drilled holes, so that way if the floor starts to move, the frame stays in place and the nail just slides up through the framing itself and it doesn't push up and ruin the inside of your house upstairs. So that's something you might want to consider. You can also see there's insulation behind all of the framing that I did. If you want to save yourself some room and you already have an insulated wall, you can go through and pull down all of this insulation, then frame, then re-insulate. I felt it really wasn't worth it with a lot of this already being done. So I just framed in front of it. So basically this insulation acts as a vapor barrier and it also acts as the insulation. You'll also see around the edges I went through and added some additional fire blocking. So the intent of fire blocking is to keep air from traveling in between each of these spaces as much as possible. The place I'm looking at is about 10 feet. I don't know that was actually necessary up there, but it adds a little bit of extra protection. But basically you want to make it so between 10 feet along a wall you don't have air transfer. So if a fire starts in that corner over there, it can't draw air all the way from the other side of the house to keep it going. It'll have a hard time staying going because it can't get additional air. Let's see here. The other thing I did in this room, this is where the electrical came. So this is my electrical box. So I ran a subpanel, basically put a 100 amp circuit up in the main panel. You can see this big cord that comes down. So that 100 amp circuit powers this entire subpanel. Then I basically ran 5 different circuits. I ran mostly 20 amp circuits. Those are required in the bathroom, but I went ahead and ran them in the other ones so that I could run this larger wire, which you can see in yellow. I only did one 15 amp circuit, which is what the white wire is here. So that goes to this bedroom that I'm standing in right now. I use some different circuit breakers here. These are actually by code now. So you have what's called arc fault breakers in bedrooms, kitchens, etc. Actually, not kitchens. Kitchens need to be GFCI because there's water. Basically, if you have some type of water in a room, you need a GFCI outlet. All the other ones use arc fault. So a typical breaker would have the white wire come down and go straight into this panel here. With these arc fault GFCI, the white wire actually comes down into the circuit breaker, just like the black wire. And then you have another white wire coming out of the breaker up into the panel. It gives some added protection. So looking around, one of the things I wanted to do is take inventory of where I have wire, where I have other stuff. This is a sump pump. I built a little room around the sump pump. This thing fills up with water from time to time, makes a lot of noise. You don't want it sitting here in the middle of a room, so it's going to have a little closet door around it. Next to it is going to be another closet. You can also see up here the vents, which are laterals to heat the different rooms. What I did here is these used to be angular and go straight up to the vents upstairs. What I did is I straightened them out and put a 90-degree angle so that I could get them nice and straight and just have this one soffit running down the middle of the room. These also helped because then I could run all the wires through them instead of having to pound through the different beams up at top and get them through. You'll also see I ran some cable wire here. Most of my TVs, internet, etc. is going to need cable wire, so I went ahead and pre-wired the rooms. That way if I ever get cable down here, someone doesn't have to go run lines on the outside of the house. It's already running through here. So as far as the electrical, got the main panel set up. Comes up through the top, runs down to this box. You can see that box is all wired up. There's a line underneath which runs to another box here, and that's a cable box next to it. So when this line comes back up, comes around, it comes down, and you can see there's quite a bit going on here. There's actually two switches that are going to be wired here. One switch is going to be to this light, the other switch is to that light. These are basically set up for fans. It's probably a little overkill to have two switches in a room this small, but I went ahead and did it. The other thing you'll see is right now I have this light on. That is not going to be a light, that's going to be a smoke alarm. So something that you have to do with new smoke alarms is you're supposed to have a 3-wire connection to every single smoke alarm. So all these lights are actually going to be smoke alarms, and they were pre-wired down here to a different circuit, so they're not actually coming to this box. So if I turn everything off in that box, these lights will still be on, and that's because they are to another circuit that's up in the main box. So each of these is going to be connected through 3-wire. The reasoning for that is they go all throughout the house. If there is a fire somewhere in the house, it'll alert all of the smoke detectors to go off, so everyone in the house knows that there is going to be, or that there is a fire, I should say. So looking around here, there's going to be another door to the bedroom here, another door to the bedroom here. You can also look, so I wired a light up in the sump pump room. That's just going to be a pull switch light. I'm not going to finish the inside of this room. There's another light wired in the closet here. You can see the light switch there, and that tees into the rest of this wall, which then has plugs all the way through it, all the way to here. So that completes the electrical for this room. The other things to look at is I did one vent stack. I actually have to extend that so it sticks down a little bit further below the frame here, so that whenever I put on the sheetrock, it'll be in line with the sheetrock. Didn't put any more vents in this room, so I'm going to move over to the bigger room here, and you can see a lot going on here. So again, light switch. This is actually a 4-way switch, so this was a lot of fun to wire. I'm putting it so that if you come into the door is going to swing out, and if you walk out here, you can toggle this light switch on and off, and it's going to control all of these can lights. I did can lights throughout the basement. You can see them all wired up through here. There's one more switch coming down the stairs that turns those on. And there's one more switch over there on the other side of this room. So there's actually 3 switches that controls these lights, so that no matter where you come in the room, you can turn them on and off. From there, from that switch, you can see same thing as the other rooms. I'm now working with the bigger wire here. It's a bigger room, more outlets. I need a little bit more energy. But you can see I ran a line all the way down this wall, and it goes all the way around. You can see the last breaker straight over there. Or not breaker, sorry, outlet over there. In this room, I did the same thing. So one of the things you can see all the way around, again, I did fire blocking. I had to actually put blocks in because there is a recessed portion of the wall. I believe the reason for that is because this basement was built so you could put a drop ceiling and not have to do all this soffit work that I did. I wanted to try to keep a little more headroom, so it was a lot more work, but I think it'll be a little bit nicer to have a little bit more room up in the ceiling in some of these areas. I also had to go and straight line these. You can see where they're teeing out, just like the ones I showed earlier. But before, those were just running straight over to those vents, so I basically would have to drop the whole ceiling if I was going to keep them that way. The other thing that's in here is the air conditioner line. I actually got a quote to get that moved, and it's copper pipe. And basically I was told that if you want to try to move that or straighten it, you need to evacuate the whole system, rerun a new line, and the price I looked at was probably about the price of getting a new air conditioner. So what I did is I just dropped the ceiling a little bit so that I could put in everything around it and not interfere with that line. So you can see that there. Let's see, a couple other things. I'm standing below a sink and a fridge, so you can see I kind of framed out some openings so that if I ever need to get in and work on those two things, I can get to those lines. I don't have to rip up the ceiling. So I'll probably put little hatches there. Moving back this way, again, you can see all this soffit work. You can see all the electrical running through. This is going to these other rooms that you'll see in a minute. These worked really well for being able to run that line. So this next room is the bathroom. You can see this wall sticking out there. You can also see some of these pieces I have sitting here. I'm getting ready to install a shower. But basically that's the area that the shower is going to be in. I've gone in, I used PEX for all the plumbing. I didn't use copper. PEX is super easy to use. I just needed to tap in to the existing copper lines here. And then all the PEX is really easy to work with. Use shark bite connectors, which are, again, super easy to use. Have my drain here for my sink. Stub out for the toilet. And then this is where the shower is going to be. You can see everything's connected here. I used shark bite fittings for everything. For the shower valve, you can see where I added shark bite fittings to it, so that I could just tie right into it. These are really nice if you need to move something. There's a tool here. You see my tools set up. You can use these to pull that shark bite right off. It's really easy. By the way, you can see a lot of tools set up here. You cannot have enough table space if you're taking on a project like this. And hopefully you already have some tools, because if you go through and buy all the tools you need for a basement job this big, I spent quite a bit of money doing that. I already had most of mine set up, so I didn't have to buy too many. Electrical in this room, you can see I wired a fan, so by code I have to have a fan in this room. It's going to have a light on top of it. As you can see, it's right above where I'm going to have the shower. So there's only some of these that are allowed to be above a shower like this. This is one that is rated for that, so make sure if you're going to be putting it up above the shower that it's rated for that. You can see I then put a line out and then popped out the side of the house so that it could all vent out. Other electrical, there's a three-way switch, actually two three-way switches here. One's for the fan and one's for the light that'll be above the sink. I wired them separate, that way you could turn on a fan separately from the light. The wiring comes up here, goes up to the fan. The other wire comes over, drops into the light, and then it comes back around, which will have another three-way switch sitting here, and then right next to it is an outlet actually, which is actually tied in from the outlet that's down here, which you can only see a couple of them down through here, which then come up to the same power source. Electrical needs a lot of planning because you need to know that you don't have too many outlets on one run, that you're running the right type of breaker off of it. Again, you got to look and see. This is a bathroom, so it's a GFCI type outlet. A lot of information on electrical that you'll need to consider when planning it out. Coming back out to this room, these are the stairs that run down. I'll probably end up finishing those eventually. Right now they're just primer gray. What happens is, this is the start of the next room, or the bar. So I have a bar set up in the back room here. Basically comes down to this light. That'll be a pull light. One of the codes to consider is you can't have any lights down below the door frame. You can see I'm going to have a utility door here. This was actually the first area that I framed, which was a utility room. So I can see some mistakes just looking at it right now. Also, there's a lot going on here that I had to try to frame out to keep from having parts of the ventilation system sticking out. So anyways, the line comes down to this box. I have two coming out because I'm going to run around to the other side of this room here. Basically, one's for another outlet, and then it comes around and moves to the rest of the system, which starts with a light, which then goes to another light. So I have one light going into what I'll show you is a closet, and then this light switch is going up to the light you see here, a light that will be above the bar here, and then the light that you can see on that will be above a sink that I'm going to have back here. Looking back in this area, if you're going to be taking on a job like this, you got to have some good music, or else you'll go crazy with the amount of time you're going to spend like this if you're doing it all yourself, like I did. Also, you want to have some fun while you're down here. So, you can see some stuff that I was messing with. I also have some workout equipment to keep me sane. Back in this area, there's going to be a closet under the stairs. A couple things to look at. One, I had to build a bench just the way I did this plumbing. I'm going to have a sink plumbed here in the bar area. You can see again, I tied in with shark bite fittings into the existing plumbing. Ran some PEX down and have a place for sink. I don't have shutoffs on this one like you saw in the bathroom, just because there's single lines and there's shutoffs down here at the bottom, so I didn't think I needed a shutoff there. I did run another cable line in here in case I want a TV in this area. And then here's the next electrical box. So I didn't drill these through the wall just because it's so short of a run. I actually ran them around to here, and this one I came down. This is going to be wiring for the bar, and I used different type of cable here because there might be nails and stuff that I'm using when building the bar. I didn't want to pinch into the wire, so everything here is metal sheathed. You can see I have the area where the bar is going to be kind of framed out here. I kept it separate from the wall. Again, same floating wall concept. If I connected this and this starts to lift up and down, there's no reason to have a floating floor or a floating wall because the bar would push everything up. So I kept it separate. There's a couple ways that could do this. I could have also hung it from the roof and had something like this over here to connect it to. The last room is this room here, which will be the entertainment room. This one, same thing. Started down here with this outlet. There's also a light in here. I mentioned this light switch controls the bigger room, but there's also a two three-way switches. One comes up and is going to actually control this, which I'm going to have a pool table in here, so it's going to have a pool table light. and then it's going to control 2 fans that you can see wired up top there in the blue boxes. The other switch is going to control the can lights, just so you can control the amount of lighting here. I think those will have dimmers on them. So you can see there's actually 4 in here. I only have 1 with a light in it right now. Then another light line comes down to this outlet box, which then completes the circuit through the wall all the way around. And the last one's behind this insulation here. You can see it back here. So I've tested all these, they're all working. One thing with arc fault circuits is you actually have to plug something in and run it to see if it's going to trip. I had 2 circuit breakers turned on, thought I was good. Then when I tried to wire a light, all of a sudden it started tripping. Found out is because there was a problem with the wiring, but I was never going to tell that until I actually plugged something into it. Down here you can see a lot of my leftover materials. Probably have a post-construction sale, try to sell some of that at the end of this. And you can also see I did a bunch of soffit work up here as well. I didn't really have to move any of these lines, but there's so much ductwork that I really had to lower the ceiling in here. The last thing I think is worth mentioning is back in this room before I started, there were some copper lines and things that were running up here. Again, I wanted to try to maximize headspace, so I moved them. I added PEX to them. Those used to be copper lines that were running along the roof. I also moved this drain line for the sink that you can see up here, because again it was running up here along the roof. So I moved it back into that kind of nook area. And then I went along, same thing, fire blocked all the way around where I needed to. Same on this side. Added some additional of this fire block stuff just to give it some extra protection. And in here I didn't need it as much because the framing's up against the roof. So fire blocking is required by most codes, so it's something you're going to need to consider. Last thing, again, lots of tools here, but make sure you have enough gloves. I've gone through multiple pair of gloves. Several of them ended up looking like this with all the work I've been doing. Tape measures, can't have enough tape measures. Pencils, I have pencils laying all over the place just because you never know when you need to write something down. Lots of other tools. So that's kind of the overview of what I did here. If you are looking for any other information, let me know and I can try to post additional info. Something to worth note is I'll probably put this on the internet on YouTube. I know a lot of people will probably criticize, so feel free to give me some comments on things I could improve on. Or like I said, if there's any information I left out that maybe you need. Finally, I think just the next steps I'm going to do, I have to put in a tub like I mentioned earlier, and I am going to use this stuff to insulate everything up top, mainly for soundproofing. Doesn't really need insulation for heat because that's another floor above me. But I really want to soundproof everything. That way there's a pretty clear separation between the upstairs and downstairs when it comes to sound. So once I have that up, get the tub in, extend a couple of these vent registers, which I have one in each room, then it will be time for sheetrock. Alright, that's about it. Thanks.